Their premiums doubled and their coverage cut in half. It's the craziest thing in the world.
The craziest thing in the world? I don't know. These two candidates are planning some crazy stuff.
We can deploy 500 million more solar panels. We can have enough clean energy to power every home.
No, we can't with today's technology. That's a fantasy. I thought Trump, because he's a businessman, would be more practical. But no, despite Obamacare's failure, he speaks up for single-payer, government-run health care.
As far as single payer, it works in Canada. It works incredibly well in Scotland.
It does? What does Trump know about health care and economics? David Malpass says Trump knows a lot, and I usually believe what Malpass says. I've known him for some time. He writes smart articles about economics and free markets, but now Malpass is a Trump supporter, an economic advisor to Trump. So you're just selling yourself out for this guy who says ridiculous things?
Hi, John. No, I think the election is going to come down to who knows more about growth. So Hillary Clinton has shown for 8 years with Obama that there's not much knowledge of growth. We've had a really slow growth environment. And Trump has shown growth wherever he goes. So in New York City, we have buildings all around us that were created because you could get the job done. So one of the big things in this campaign is who's more effective.
All right, he's against free trade. How do you get growth without trade?
Well, he's for more trade and more jobs for Americans. And so I really think you have to examine the deals, the trade deals that have been done. They aren't benefiting American workers. So you're not for that. We've got to be for having better jobs for Americans, and that's what he stands for.
Here's what Hillary Clinton says about your candidate's ideas.
The kind of plan that Donald has put forth would be trickle-down economics all over again. In fact, it would be the most extreme version, the biggest tax cuts for the top % of the people in this country than we've ever had. I call it trumped-up trickle-down.
What do you say to that?
Well, that's what the elite always says. They want all the money in the country to stay in Washington, D.C. It's their money. And so anytime there's an effort to let people keep their own money through a tax cut, let's say, they're opposed to it. They're against it. And so that's really what Trump is saying. There's going to have to be an upheaval of the Washington culture that keeps the money there.
All right, I get the idea. You get more growth if taxes are cut. But we're going broke, America is. The deficit is enormous and growing. He wants to spend more also on the military. He won't touch entitlements, he says. This is awful.
No, it's actually pretty good. You're not going to really balance the budget by having slow growth. That's just not going to work. You can't get enough, you can't squeeze enough money out of the country to make that system work. It's really disappointing to me that the Obama administration, and followed by Hillary Clinton, really are accepting of this 1.8% growth rate that they're forecasting.
Obama said we're going to have 3%. He never got it.
Right, and now he doesn't even say it. The Federal Reserve has lowered their forecast to 1.8 all the way through 2019 under current policies. So that seems to me a demand by the economics community that there be a sweeping upheaval change in Washington. The current system isn't working. Trump has a new system that I think has a lot better chance.
But he's going to bankrupt us. He won't cut anything.
Now, people said that about Ronald Reagan. He's going to bankrupt us, and it worked really well. It created, so Trump is going to create 25 million jobs, and that's going to make the fiscal balance stronger. If you think about what would make the U.S. stronger, it would be having more growth. We get a better fiscal balance. The dollar becomes a trustworthy currency again. We've lost that because we have such slow growth. That can be
George
fixed.
W. Bush said, cut taxes, it'll grow so much, we'll reduce the deficit. Didn't work. Deficit went up.
It did go up, but we had more growth than Obama has had, and you had a war in between, both in 2001, an attack on the U.S., and then a 2003 and a surge later on. So one of the issues, I don't think you can really go back and compare things. I think what we have to do, does it make any sense to have the U.S. corporate tax rate the highest in the world? So we're at 35%. The companies take their money out of the U.S., the jobs go with them, and that's a failure of a system. And Obama hasn't proposed changes, nor does Hillary Clinton in that. In fact, she's proposing tax increases, $1.5 trillion, and the types of taxes she's increasing are really going to hurt small businesses, which is where we have to get job growth.
I'm never certain what Trump knows or believes. At a debate, he said something sensible about raising the minimum wage.
We cannot do this if we are going to compete with the rest of the world. We just can't do it.
So do not raise the minimum wage.
I would not raise the minimum.
Right, don't raise it. That kills opportunity. But a few months later,
I would like to raise it to at least $10.
how can you work for this guy?
Because I really think he'll be better for the country, and we'll see in November. He's tapping into a movement. People want sweeping change, and they're tired of the way Washington works. The special interests are eating up Washington.
He's for a $10 minimum wage. Are you?
But no, I'm not. I don't think the federal government should be dictating to states and to communities what the required
So why does he say
wage
this?
is. But what he does know, and what I think is a more overriding theme of the campaign, is regulatory reform. The country is being choked, and small businesses are being choked. Individuals feel the heavy hand of government all the time. And Trump has been really crystal clear that there's going to be effective regulation, that if a regulation doesn't cause us to be safer or faster growing, then we don't want it. And so there's a review of the regulations that will allow the country to grow faster. That's really important.
That would be good. I agree with you. It's
he says it all the
strangling
time.
Opportunity.
I was in his office. He read a speech that said that, and he said, not strong enough. We're going to end the regulatory industry in Washington.
Well, that's good. Thank you, David Malpass. I'm grateful that your candidate says some things that make sense.